Hey everyone, Nathan Graybeal here. Today, I want to dive deep with you all into 6 elements that you can think about when improvising your own bebop phrases. This will be bebop scales and passing tones, chromatic approach notes and enclosures, substitutions, pentatonics, upper structures, and rhythmic variation. Everything we're about to discuss can be found in my latest resource with jazz lesson videos entitled Bebop 251s, where I've written over 80 different phrases for you that explores all 6 of these concepts. Half of them are major 251s and the other half are minor 251s. And we've even put them in all 12 keys for you. I've also provided recordings of all 84 phrases and included backing tracks. So if you're interested in downloading the full resource, you can find a link in the description below and use code BEBOP5 for $5 off. All right, so the first concept I want to share with you is bebop scales and passing tones. We're going to play a line from this first chapter of the resource and then we'll break it down together. Cool, so what's going on here? We start on the 5 of our 2 chord and walk down the chromatic scale till we reach the 3rd. Now those chromatic notes are considered chromatic passing tones, which are just notes that connect 2 notes together by going in the same direction. So from A to G, we're going down. So we're going to insert a chromatic passing tone in between that is also going down. And the perfect note is an A flat. If we had, that's another way of targeting that G, but it wouldn't be a passing tone. And same thing from G down to F. We're going to add that chromatic passing tone, which is that G flat. Right, it's going the same direction, and that makes it a passing tone. Now we're going to add this fun triplet embellishment, which is really just a decoration of the flat 3rd to the root to the 5th. So really a minor triad. Then we're going to jump up to the flat 7 and voice lead into the 3rd of our G7. Now we're going to dip down to a chromatic approach note from below that note and then return back to that note, that 3rd, and we're going to arpeggiate a B half diminished chord, or really arpeggio. And this B half diminished arpeggio is a very common structure that you can play within dominant chords. It really gives you a rootless dominant 9 sound, right? So if this is a dominant 9, remove the root and now make it a rootless dominant 9. You're left with a B half diminished. So that's exactly what's going on here. Oftentimes, just memorizing shapes like this can be a bit easier than thinking, oh, this is the 3rd, and then the 5th, and then the flat 7th, and then the 9th. I can just think, oh, B half diminished. Now again, from here, we're going to add those same chromatic passing tones until we voice lead onto the 4th of our C major 7 chord. Right here, this ends up being a more suspended sound where we're playing with the sound of the 4th resolving onto the 3rd, and it creates this nice sort of suspended flavor. So that's just a nice suspended phrase. Let's hear all this one more time. Cool. So that brings us to the second concept that I want to share with you, which is chromatic approach notes and enclosures. Let's play a minor 2/5 from the 2nd chapter of the resource that demonstrates this concept, then we'll break it down. All right, so what do we have here? We open up with a 5-note enclosure around D, the flat 3rd of our half diminished chord. An enclosure is when you target a note from both below and above. It can be above first and then below, or it can be below and then above. But the idea is that you're sort of sandwiching a target note. In this case, our target is definitely that D, and we're going to create this 5-note enclosure featuring a triplet. And then we're going to walk up to D minor 1, 2, 3, 5. This conveniently gives us this chords, flat 3rd, 4, flat 5, and then flat 7. So another example of just thinking of a structure, D minor 1, 2, 3, 5, can be a bit easier, at least in my opinion, to just thinking numerically so much all the time. Then we voice lead down onto the 3rd of our dominant 7 chord, and then we have a chromatic triplet passage that goes up and then back down, featuring chromatic passing tones. Now our target is acquired. We're trying to target that E right on the downbeat of that A minor 7. And check this out, we're going to form a 4-note enclosure around it. And now these next 4 notes are actually an enclosure around the C right there on beat 3. And then we're going to walk down the scale, and technically those last 2 notes is a 2-note enclosure around our major 7th, which is a nice, spicy, sort of colorful tension that you can play over a 1 minor 7 chord. So let's hear all this one more time. Cool. Now the third concept I want to share with you is the idea of substitutions. Let's play a major 2-5 from that chapter of the resource, and then we'll break it down together. Cool, so what's going on here? Our first measure over this D minor 7 is completely diatonic. We start off with an F 1, 2, 3, 5 shape. Again, there's that shape again, which gives us discords, flat 3, 4, 5, and flat 7. And then we're going to walk up one more diatonic third here up to that 9th, and we play this nice melodic figure featuring the 9, the root, and then the 13, and then the 5. And now we play a substitution. So rather than playing G dominant 7, we're going to play the tritone substitution. There's several more substitutions that are shown in the full resource, but you can't go wrong with the tritone substitution. How you're going to do that is find the root, which is G in this case, and then go up or down a tritone. You're going to get the same note because it's the perfect midpoint distance between a full octave. So going up a tritone gives you a D flat, going down a tritone also gives you a D flat. And why this works is that D flat 7 shares the same thirds and 7 as the G dominant 7, right? So G dominant 7's third is a B, and then its flat 7 is an F. Now D flat dominant 7's third is an F, which is the G7's flat 7, and then the D flat dominant 7's flat 7 is a B, which is the G7's third. So they're inverted, they flip upside down. And so that entire measure is just a D flat dominant 7 phrase. We start on D flat dominant 7's 5th, and those first 4 notes end up being a 4-note enclosure around the D flat's third, or the G7's flat 7, and then we're going to go down the D flat major triad. And this gives us a nice voice leading with a half-step movement down onto the third of our C major 7. And from here, we just embellish the C major triad with some chromatic approach notes and some diatonic passing tones. So let's hear all that one more time. Cool. So the fourth concept I want to share with you is the idea of pentatonics in bebop. I'm going to go ahead and play a minor 2-5 from the resource, and then we'll break it down together. Cool, so what's going on here? Over a half diminished chord, you can spot the flat 6 or the flat 13, they're the same note, and play that pitch's dominant pentatonic scale. This is going to give you a lot of really favorable notes for that chord. The dominant pentatonic is a 1, 2, 3, 5, and flat 7. So it's the same as a major pentatonic. We're going to replace its 6 with the flat 7. It sounds like this. So that entire first measure is just a melodic phrase using only the G dominant pentatonic scale. Now for the next note, we go to the B flat dominant pentatonic. So really you're creating another tritone sub, right? From E dominant 7, the root is E. We're going to go up a tritone, which is the B flat. So we're sort of treating this as a B flat dominant 7 chord. And we're playing the B flat dominant pentatonic from there. All of those notes are strictly the B flat dominant pentatonic scale. And then from A minor 7, we're playing the E major flat 6 pentatonic. So if you were to just think of an ordinary E major pentatonic scale, the 6 would be a C sharp. Now we're going to lower that 6, make it a flat 6, and now it becomes a C natural. And the result scale is really beautiful. It sounds like this. It's a really effective sound over A minor major 7, or anytime you have a melodic minor scale, you can trace that parent scale. In this case, it's from the root. We're thinking A melodic minor. But if you were to have, like, say, an F dominant 7 with a sharp 11, right, Lydian dominant, find the parent melodic minor scale, which just means find the melodic minor scale that that chord comes from, which in that case, F dominant 7 sharp 11, the F Lydian dominant, comes from the C melodic minor scale. Once you've found it, go to that parent scale, that source melodic minor scale's fifth, and you can build that major pentatonic scale from there. So in that example, C melodic minor's fifth is a G, and we can play the G major flat 6 pentatonic over an F dominant 7 sharp 11 chord. Anyway, going back to the line, over A melodic minor, you can go to the fifth, E, and you can play the E major flat 6 pentatonic. And this measure ends up sounding like this. So let's hear that entire phrase one more time. 1, 2, 3. Cool. Now, the fifth concept I want to share with you is the idea of upper structures. Let's go ahead and play a line from that chapter of the resource, and then we'll break down what's going on. Cool. So what's going on here? An upper structure is when you take a chord and you improvise based off of a different diatonic seventh chord within that chord, or a diatonic seventh chord within some sort of substitution of another chord. So over a D minor 7, we're going to the flat third, F, and we're playing with the shape, the chord tones of F major 7, but still treating everything around it as if it's D Dorian. So the first 4 notes is a 4-note enclosure around our target C. Then we're going to jump up to the third of our upper structure, which ends up being this chord's fifth, and then we dip down to the upper structure's 7th and then play its root, which ends up being the D minor 7's 9 and then flat third. So altogether, and now for our G7, we're actually taking the sound of the G dominant diminished, or you can think of G7 sharp 9 or G13 flat 9. Essentially, it's a dominant 7 chord that has a natural 13 and your sharp and or flat 9. Also, it comes from the G half whole diminished scale. And we're taking one of the arpeggios or structures inside of that scale, which is the D diminished major 7. And just a quick tip, anytime you find any structure within a fully diminished scale, whether it's half whole or whole half, you'll find that exact same structure 3 more times in 3 different transpositions, a total of 4 transpositions, all a minor third apart. So this particular shape sounds really cool right next to each other. Check it out. Pretty fun sound. But we just take one of those, in this case the D diminished major 7, which is a diminished triad with a major 7th on it, and it ends up giving this chord, the D, which is this chord's 5th, this chord's flat 7, the F, A flat, which is this chord's flat 9, and then this chord's sharp 11, the C sharp. So it gives you some really juicy altered extensions, and this entire measure is just strictly this shape. And then we voice lead down onto the 5th of our C major 7 chord. And then we play with the sound of the upper structure found on the 3rd of our 1 major 7 chord. In this case, it's going to be the E minor 7. So we're just going to play with those chord tones and make a melody out of that. Those chromatic notes are just chromatic approach tones. They are not chord tones to either the chord or the upper structure. They're just decorative tones. So let's hear all this put together one more time. Cool. All right, and finally, the last concept I want to share with you is the idea of rhythmic variation. I'll play a line from that chapter of the resource, and then we'll break it down together. Cool, so what are we doing here? The idea is just trying to play things other than eighth notes. Eighth notes are a great studying tool to get new vocabulary because you can really embellish eighth notes in an infinite amount of ways with triplets and rests and 16th notes. So that's the idea of the last chapter of the book. Let's break down what's going on here. The first note is on the and of one, and the next note is on the and of two. And we use two 16th notes followed by a wider leap onto the fourth of our B half diminished chord. And then using eighth notes in the triplets, we voice lead our way down to the third of our E7 chord. So all together, 1, 2, and go. And then we have some syncopation here. We have an eighth note followed by a quarter note, followed by another eighth note. And then we have this fun altered figure featuring triplet 16ths. And really, it's just embellishing this eighth note line here, but turning it into this. Cool. So that measure sounds like this. And now this measure really exaggerates the sound of Dorian by highlighting that major 6, but also having the flat 7 in there. If it was a major 7, then it'd be melodic minor. And then we're going to have a sort of repeated pattern here. We're going to have two eighth notes and then a triplet figure tied into a note. And then we're going to do that again. Right after our second set of eighth notes, we're going to have a triplet figure again and tie it to the next note. So that ends up sounding like this. So let's play this entire line one more time. 1, 2, ready, go. Well, alrighty everyone, that concludes today's video. I really hope it helped and thank you all so much for watching. Again, if you'd like to check out the full new resource, Bebop 251s, you can find the link in the description below and use code Bebop5 for $5 off. And as always, please consider leaving a like and subscribe below as it really helps this channel grow. All right, everyone, I'll see you all next time.